Hover, hover out, hover, hover out. Let's take a look at CSS transitions. On hover, this top layer's hover transparency is set to 0, and on leaving of the hover, it's set back to 1 or 100%. Looking in the code, there's something that holds what is being called a card. There's a card holder, which is the outer page. Within there is a card, and that card has two elements, an image and this overlay, card overlay, that's blocking the image. On hover of the card, which is just moving within this card, on hover the card, target the class called card overlay, which is that top gray layer, and set its opacity instantly to 0. And this is the effect. To get something a little more graceful visually, going to the card overlay, you could set its transition. The transition when the property changes is a half a second, and use easing to get there. Refreshing and playing this, now on hover, the opacity fades away, and on leaving of this hover, it returns also with an animation. Transitions describe what to do when element properties change, going from 100% opacity for the overlay to 0% opacity. And instead of 0, you can choose another number like 0.2. Still see the word who through it, and on leaving. Let me rewire this to use a filter instead. I'm going to delete the top layer blocking the image. Code-wise, this also means I don't have this overlay anymore. All that exists is this card with this image inside of it. I'm going to define the image to have a filter, .card, look for the image, apply this filter, a blur, and this is the natural blur state. On hover, I want this to unblur, and leaving this hover, I want the transition to be used to transition back to blurring. I'm going to redefine the card on hover, go to the image, and set on hover the filter for blur back down to nothing. And now we're only one more ingredient away from getting this to work. In order to create the transition for filters, and right here you're using a blur filter, use WebKit filter or filter. Let's take a look at this now. Hover, hover out, hover, hover out. So have some fun with transitions in general and transitions with filters.